welcome to the Bearhug Club, a pro wrestling podcast of positivity.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Bearhug Club podcast, Thursday Night Paw edition this week. Greg here as always, and once again I'm joined by my boo Garrett.
Hello!
How's it going, sweetie? You alright?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. How are you?
Can't complain. Pretty tired, it's been a long week, but otherwise good. I luckily managed to get a hold of a PlayStation 5 this week, so I'm a pretty happy boy. There we go.
One of the restocks, nice.
Yeah.
New flat, new station to play on.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, it's just you and me this week. Jace can't make it. Scott got a new job. Actually, he's a news reporter now. I heard. Oh, hold on. This just in from is it our man on the field?
Hello, yes, this is Scott hailing from Southampton. I'm currently here in what seems like the great outdoors, currently searching for news. There isn't any here I can report, but hopefully within the hour there should be some news elsewhere, maybe even some wrestling. To report, there is greenery around, there's a bush like here. Anyways, back to you, Garrett and Greg in the studio.
Thanks, Scott. Good to see the update there. We'll hope to bring you some more wrestling action live in the field with Scott later on in this episode.
Yes, thank you very much, Scott. Anyway, Israel and Palestine. Hello, Scott.
I decided to chance through the shrubbery for that bit, and I got stung by loads of stinging nettles. So I've learned my lesson not to explore.
Our man in the field is down.
We probably should have scouted the field before we sent him to one.
Yeah.
Oh, goddamn, where's the health and safety officers of Bearhug Club? Where are they? Need the men in hard hats to do the hard work.
Where are the men in the lycra
Need
jackets?
some hard men with some hats.
Hard men with hats.
But yes, welcome to the Bearhug Club podcast. This week, we're talking about something colourful, right? That's the word.
Rainbow.
We're getting colour.
We are going to get some colour. Yes, this week we are going to be talking about blood in wrestling, in general. Let's start off with a little question. Scott, what blood type are you?
I am A positive man.
All right. It's good that you're a positive man. Hello, Slice.
Slice.
Hey, Slice.
All right. Well,
is it bad that I don't know my blood type?
No, I have no idea what my blood type is.
Yeah, I'd be fucked.
It's in my body right now, and that's all I needed to.
Yeah,
that's all I need it to be.
As long as it's not coming out, you don't have to worry.
I feel like most people don't know their blood type.
But I feel like it's something like, isn't it quite important to know? I mean, if you go to the hospital, they'll figure it out, right?
Well, your blood type isn't on your birth certificate or anything, is it?
I don't know. I can check.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's in a box like up there.
Your birth certificate?
Yeah, it's in my important. Do you know those adult important file boxes you keep all the important things in? Got one of them.
Like
comic
taxes.
Books and D&D books, and I've got nothing else.
Oh yeah, all mine are over there.
I have.
All right, well,
look at
Scott
it.
writes his own books on leads.
I bet. Well, I mean, you're in Southampton. I bet if you just rummage around in there, you could find some needles with some blood in them.
Oh, hold on.
Traces in them. Please don't actually go searching for Southampton heroin needles on stream.
No, do it, dude. That stuff's worth money.
I thought you were about to say searching for Southampton. I'm like, oh, it's got to be around it somewhere. I'll come back to you on that.
Stabbed by a junkie live on air.
Oh,
That'll be somewhat appropriate to our topic of conversation.
well,
Yeah.
speaking of our topic of conversation, recently we just had the Blood and Guts pay-per-view, AEW's pay-per-view, which, there's got to be some blood. There's assumedly got to be some guts, or else it's false advertising. Left Southampton and your other coach, Scott.
These things just happen, don't they? Well, it's probably why the football team won. Hey, yeah. Blood and Guts. Guts and Blood.
Blood and Guts was a great show. Let's start with that.
Solid show.
Yeah, it was very, very good. I think much like anything in wrestling and media, when you end with a bit of a dud, people tend to forget what the actual show was like. This mic isn't even on.
I mean, it was kind of like the a bit similar to the fiasco they had with the exploding ring barbed wire death match, because the match was going again, like the whole show up until the ending of that was great, and then because the ending was a bit of a bum note, everyone chose to ignore the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already over it. I was over it an hour after it happened. I was over it.
I wasn't even mad at the ending of Blood and Guts.
No,
the only I think the match was solid. It was one of the more sort of brutal things I've seen on a mainstream wrestling program in a while, and it sort of delivered on that front. I think the things that hindered it was maybe they should have been kept for a pay-per-view, because I watch it through Fight TV, so I don't get to see the ad breaks, but it was quite obvious when ad breaks were occurring, the momentum.
Right, they're just taking a backseat.
Yeah, just so they could get out of the way so we can go back to it. And then again, the ending didn't bother me. Chris Jericho's 50. It was no wonder if he was going to take that bump. It was going to be heavily padded. I'd argue maybe they could have done more to dress it up a bit so it didn't look so obvious. But then you don't really know until someone's gone off what that's going to look like.
I think that's exactly it. The only people that you could even say slightly were at fault was production.
Yeah.
Same with the barbed wire death match. They could have probably tried to find a different solution for that one as well. But yeah, it was fine.
Yeah.
I think it was just the set dressing wasn't as good. Because what the boards on top that were the faux corrugated metal plastic things that were kind of bendy. I don't know. That I'm not in production, couldn't say. No. Otherwise, amazing show and great show. But the key word in the Blood and Guts for us is the blood. I feel really, if you see anyone's guts in a wrestling match, it should probably be called off.
I mean, unless it's Japan, where that stuff just happens.
Well, speaking of Japan, if we're going to talk about blood, we can't not talk about Japan and Japanese wrestling. We can't not talk about the literal scale for bloody matches, which, as you'll know, was the Muta scale,
which I literally wrote about yesterday for matches you need to see on the website.
Are you gonna the actual match, the actual 1992 Hiroshi Hase match?
I did indeed. I watched it for the first time yesterday and wrote a little piece on that match for matches you need to see, simply because I knew obviously we were going to be talking about it here. Tie things in. Yeah, man. I mean, it's certainly a little one of that match was the match that invented a scale to judge things on, because by the end of it, the ring mat, the referee, Hiroshi, just everything is literally covered in blood. And fair enough, stuff has come afterwards that has obviously maybe broken that scale a little bit, but that is always going to be the benchmark. That's where it's kind of set. You either go below or above that. Yeah.
For those that haven't seen it, it's very bloody. If we played a video, probably break Twitch terms of service. Bloody.
YouTube wouldn't like it.
No, YouTube probably wouldn't like it either.
Told off by Google.
Yeah.
Yes. Who's the CEO of Google? I was about to say Zuckerberg would come down, but he's the other one. Who is Google? Why do we not know about Mr. Google?
John Google.
All right. Well, John Google's going to come down. No, who's the CEO of YouTube? Susan Wojcicki will come down. All right. Well, I've got sidetracked. What are we talking about? Blood.
We're talking about the Muta scale.
Yeah.
The Muta scale. Do you personally have a preference for or against blood? Are you indifferent to it, or is it like completely dependent on a lot of factors?
I would say I'm for blood, but it kind of falls into that last thing you said there. It depends on what the scenario is and when it's brought out. I don't think it's something like, even though I grew up in the, like, obviously the Attitude Era going to Ruthless Aggression, where it felt like every pay-per-view in WWE had blood, and even a lot of it on Monday Night Raw. I do like the place right now where places like AEW do it, but it's sparingly. It's typically more used for like a big moment, like when you think stuff along the lines of Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa from earlier this year in the Lights Out match they had. Blood there was a great way of enhancing it, and in a lot of cases, like people before her, like Becky Lynch and Steve Austin, it can be used to really make a star and prove their grit. So I think it depends on the scenario. It shouldn't be something that's brought out all the time, but I think if you do it sparingly, it's quite a useful tool in the wrestling gimmick box, I guess.
Yeah.
It's definitely, sorry. It's definitely like a spectacle thing. I like to think of it similar, in a kind of similar vein to Pyro, where like it's got to be brought out for like important kind of spectacle moments. It's got to be brought out to add to a match. It can't be. It can't. A match can't revolve around it. Like I always hated First Blood matches when they were a thing, because it's like that can just happen from an errant punch, and then the match would be like, oh, that's the end. And it's just like, well, what? Like that could be it. But I think for like a knockdown drag out fight where it's like a real heartfelt rivalry, something like Blood can add to like either a babyface comeback story, or like just to show how tough they are, or how much heart they have. It's a story element. It shouldn't be treated as like a main gimmick. So
speaking of how much heart they have, here is one of the most iconic matches to feature blood in it, also featuring a heart. You see what I did there? Do you see what I did? You saw what I did. Did you see what I did?
That was good. That was very good.
Thank you. This is not another card game thing, Joel. This is us talking about wrestling. We're discussing blood. We talk about the Iron Man match between Hart and Austin, right? The double turn and whatnot. Do you think that match would have been as big as it is without a visual like that? You know, do you think it would have propelled them even further without that?
Honestly, I think you could have still achieved what they were setting out to do even without blood, but I think it's the blood that kind of made it more of an iconic moment, because this was just before we were stepping into the Attitude Era, and so this is where WWE, the product was getting a little bit more edgy, you know, so the blood kind of signifies that as well, but then it just kind of adds to show like Austin's grit at the time of like how much of a badass he was. I think you could get rid of the blood and still achieve the whole double turn thing without it, because it's been done without blood before, but I think it's just that visual of him bleeding, refusing to tap out to the sharpshooter, which most people would tap out to. It just all kind of worked together to create that lasting visual and to kind of like essentially launch Austin as this new megastar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it made Austin into a credible tough guy, like an incredibly credible tough guy. Phrasing. But yeah, it's all about the visual. Like, not many matches you can get like a picture and be like, that's the match. Like, imagine, say, for instance, the women's tag title match to WrestleMania. There wouldn't be a still from that where I'd be like, I remember that key moment from that match. That character making moment. But no, like that one instance of blood probably like saved WWE like butterfly effect style. You know?
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't for that, then we wouldn't have had the heel Austin 316, and all that stuff. Like, Well, but Austin previously probably came before, but you know what I mean. Like the whole all of that heel run, then turning into a baby face, and then having probably one of the best feuds with Vince McMahon. It all stemmed from this essence of credibility that came from probably that one moment.
It's again like the to go back to the Becky thing. I think again without the blood of that, it wouldn't have been as impactful. Like fair enough, she was already on her way, yeah. But the fact, I mean, the whole thing was the reason why she looked like such a badass is the fact her nose basically exploded, and she basically acted like it hadn't, and that's kind of what made her. Well, she was already on her way there, but then that alone, everyone was just like, Becky's just too much of a badass.
I don't know. Really, if you look back at it, all this was their build up, their completely out of the blue arbitrary build up every year to Survivor Series, which is now a brand v brand thing. Even though there's no rivalry, all the heels and the faces of SmackDown become friends. All the heels and the faces of Raw become friends, and that's what happened. They all just went to the ring and attacked each other, right? They went and attacked Raw, and then just out of nowhere, she got clocked by Nia, right? Yeah. Face explodes, and then you end up with a feud that was just who gives a shit into the hottest thing in wrestling in years.
Yeah.
All because you got underscored by that moment and that image. I think it's a credit as well to the wrestlers that know, and I think there are two recently that can really stand out as knowing like what to do when you get color, and to know that like to feel it in a good way and whatnot. And those two people are most likely like, Britt Baker, who people make comparisons between her and Becky, but because of the similar looks. They're both sporting a bit of red, wearing it well.
And I mean, arguably Britt kind of did it more by the fact of that match. She took like thumbtack spots and all that kind of stuff. So,
that's the thing. It was kind of less spontaneous because she had a brutal match, whereas Becky did just kind of get clocked in the face.
Yeah.
I remember watching that and just thinking like, wait, where the fuck did the blood come from? Kind of thing. Like, because there was no, the camera didn't show properly the angle of Nia's punch. Yeah. So the blood almost looked like it came from out of nowhere. So it was initially shocking. It was only as I was going through Twitter after that Raw, was it Raw or SmackDown? One of the two. Raw. I
think it was Raw where SmackDown invaded Raw.
That's the one. Well, it's only after I saw it on Twitter afterwards that there was an errant Nia Jax punch, and I was just like, that's fucking dope. Because the like back to the Austin thing with the visual, like the smashed nose, the blood. Artists were depicting it, were painting it, and Becky was like retweeting it and stuff like that. It became like an era defining picture almost.
Yeah. Well, it's merch, it's sales, it's eyes. Because it's cool as fuck. Becky was then the highest like grossing merch mover, I'm pretty sure at the time, maybe beaten by Reign still. And I'm pretty sure Britt's t-shirt with this image was like top of the charts for like a month on Pro Wrestling Tees. To a lesser extent, this very recently happened. I feel like the match and the feud overshadows this moment.
Well, the ending as well kind of overshadowed it as well, because a lot of people, as soon as the ending happened,
it's kind of like you were overshadowed by the visual of Jericho going through the cushion.
Yeah, when the real visual, you're right, should have been closing, and everyone should have been talking about MJF bloodied and battered. Is now
MJF
is
top of
now
the page,
top of
AEW.
Yeah.
He's risen to the pinnacle, right?
Plus as well, I mean, because obviously a lot of backlash came out about this. I think it was from people that were saying, people from WWE were saying it set wrestling back 30 years. And to be fair, like other people in this match really do bleed like a lot heavier than MJF. I think like Cash Wheeler especially. He really must have went deep with his blading there, and like a lot of people bled heavily.
When you can see it getting into his like eyes and stuff, and you're just like, oh God, no. Like,
yeah, it's rough.
I mean, fair play for wrestling a good match still. Like, I can barely see with a fringe in my face, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I mean that's another topic. Let's talk about it now. When you bleed, that's your blood that's coming out.
Yeah.
And it's harder to do things when you're losing blood. There are some wrestlers who have lost quite a lot of blood on the Muta scale, Muta being one of them.
Yeah.
And I think it might even be a subconscious thing. I mean, obviously we know it consciously, but subconsciously, when you see someone doing this kind of thing and losing a lot of blood, you're like, wow, that's fucking tenacious. That's a fucking badass right there who, despite the loss of blood and the pain, because pain is what wrestling is, right? It's being a good enough actor to show pain, selling. You don't have to sell blood. There's blood. So it is a very strange storytelling tool for them to go with.
It's really funny because I mean, even though when they bleed, I mean, maybe it's just because we're such big fans of wrestling, we kind of know about the ins and outs. It's rare you'll watch someone bleed now, and I feel like they're in too much peril because I'm too used to it. But then there are those handful of examples where it's clear that it's backfired, like the classic one being Eddie Guerrero versus JBL. That's the one example where I watched the blood and went, yeah, that's probably gone very horribly wrong because I think he basically did pass out when he got backstage, and I think he went into shock because of how badly he'd lost blood. That really broke the Muta scale.
The last match I remember recently where I was like, that is a bit too much blood, was the Blood Brothers match, which retroactively, I believe it was named the Blood Brothers match because of the blood.
Cody and Dustin.
Cody and Dustin, yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we take a look and remind ourselves? Just to be clear, he was wearing a red costume at the time. This isn't... But, like, you know...
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of blood. And the ring was coated. Cody was coated. The whole...
It looks like Kane.
I'm gonna send you guys.
He looks like Kane.
The big red machine.
So obviously, people who watch this know I do collect wrestling figures, and one of the first ringside exclusives, which is one of the main distributors of wrestling figures, did this 2-pack as an exclusive. I will link it to you in the chat.
Yeah, I'll shove it up on screen.
2-pack? Oh,
yeah.
The wrestling.
So it's like a wrestling 2-pack, and it's like rare you'll get wrestling figures where it's like they're covered in blood or like made to look like they've been battle damaged. But this is like one of the first sets in a while to do that.
Mm. This one, right? Wait for it.
Ooh,
yeah.
Ooh,
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Honestly, not bloody enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be like after the match, but yeah, I mean, Dustin looks a bit too clean.
Yeah. I assume when you said 2-pack, I did think you meant the rapper 2-pack. I was like, wait, does the rapper 2-pack have a wrestling match rebladed? What happened?
But yeah, that was definitely the last match where I was like, there was one slightly before that, I think. Was it slightly before that? Or was it just after? I forget. I think before. But I was worried. That was the first time I was worried in a very long time because it was a lot of blood loss, and they soldiered on and whatnot.
Yeah. On the opposite end of the scale, though. Oh, sorry, Greg.
Sorry, mate. I would argue that the only reason I found that shocking at the time is again because this was a brand new wrestling product that was on mainstream television, and it had been so many years since we'd seen something like that in WWE, which is why I think at the time I was a bit like, whoa, that's like pretty heavy that. But then I guess that's kind of like it's sort of set. I mean, that was their first 5-star match as well, so that kind of got them off on the right footing. And I guess in some respects you can say that's them having the company somewhat built on the old school thing of blood and that kind of grit to wrestling. Anyway, what are you going to say, Scott? As your wave to pass us by.
Sorry, Bennett and Brogan had just walked past. So On the opposite scale, though, and it's worth mentioning because it's one of the instances which WWE's current attitude to blood. Sorry, I was lowering the thing. Their current attitude to blood is kind of encapsulated in the Samoa Joe Finn Balor match in NXT.
Yeah. About like not. I wouldn't even say that's on the meter scale.
Yeah, because they stopped the match. What was it, like 4 or 5 times, so the referee could start tending to it, and it was open. It's not like he was going to stitch it up there and then. Yeah. And so he just kept coming in and cleaning it up, sending him on his way. And of course, the more he moves around, the more the blood's pumping, and the more the blood pumps up and out of said hole in head. So, like they may as well have just continued. Like, sure, it would have been a little bit bloody, but it's Samoa Joe, for crying out loud. He's meant to be this kind of like tough monster. He was even being billed during the whole thing as like, oh, I'm facing the demon, and I'm a monster man myself. Mm-hmm. But like having that referee stuff, even you could even see Samoa Joe getting annoyed, and the crowd also turned against it too.
Yeah. Speaking of horrific injuries like that, and we talk about let's talk about on purpose blood, right? For example, blading and whatnot, and let's talk about accidental. Being I'd hope accidental, things like Becky's nose and whatnot, and this absolute gem, Goldberg headbutting a wall before he comes out for a promo and making himself just concussed and bleeding from the head.
You can see it in his eyes as well. He's just like, oh.
So here we have a great example of accidental. I hope bleeding, and here if we go back to back in time to something that is not accidental. Yeah.
I mean, this was probably the last time they actually had blood on mainstream WWE, probably, right? If I can fit. To that extent, anyway.
No, and I'll show you which match. It's with the same person.
Oh, okay.
This match.
Oh.
WrestleMania, okay. Roman Brock main event. Was that New Orleans? I think. Was it 37?
Was this the one? Was this the one where everyone thought he was going to win and didn't? So this was the second main event they had.
The crowd were booing. Crowd hated it. And I don't remember how he got bloodied, but there was a lot of blood from what I remember, and it just didn't help the match. No one liked it, and then he lost, and everyone was like, "All right, fine." Cool. But if we're talking about intentional bleeding and non-intentional bleeding, where do we stand on is blading cool? Do we want foreheads like that? Do we want that New Jack forehead?
Again, I think because we're in a point now where it's less frequent, hopefully it'll be better. I mean, the only time it wouldn't be is obviously if you're purely a deathmatch wrestler, because that's where that's all going to come from, doing that like nearly every night of the week. But like, I guess if you're talking about blading on something like WWE or AEW, at least it's not very frequent, so I guess it's okay. But I think if overdoing it is clearly like the wrong way to go about it, because that's why wrestlers have got the most messed up foreheads ever. Or if you're a guy like Sabu, just everywhere.
Yeah, it's got to be a spectacle. Like I said, it's got to be brought out once in a while. Like we've said, like during those times when during the Attitude Era, where it was like every pay-per-view, every other Raw, where it's like blood always became like there was always like a time when the fans were like, "Where's the blood?" When the PG stuff came through, because they were so accustomed to it and so acclimatized to it, they were shocked when wrestlers just wouldn't bleed, and fans literally in YouTube comment sections everywhere were just demanding it. Like when it's a game, like sometimes, especially in the case of Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair, it can get real bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of Ric Flair, you can't bring up blood without bringing up the Nature Boy and his blonde hair. I think a lot of wrestlers like to be blonde so that they have that kind of that look going on. When we talk about intentional blading and bleeding, another form of intentional bleeding is fake bleeding, and a referee handing you a blood pack to put in your mouth. Where do we stand? Would you prefer a wrestler just bladed themselves up, or would you prefer? I mean, do you think a blood pack is just completely unnecessary? Because obviously I think we all like blood in wrestling when it's that spontaneous and at the end of an Iron Man match, and it's like, wow, Jesus, that's a tough match, right? But when they try and manufacture it, and they've planned it, and the ref is like, here's a blood pack for you. How does that? I don't remember a time that I can think of, unless, some of our favorite blood points were faked, that I can't remember a time that I can think that a blood pack has ever given me any kind of reaction.
I mean, does it really happen that often, though? I think maybe where,
it's rare.
I mean, maybe when they're doing like the whole internal angle, you're right, like through the mouth or ear or whatever, that could be where it happens. But I think generally from what you read, like the reason why they don't use a lot of fake blood is because it is just easier for someone to blade when you think about it, instead of the whole prep of, I mean, something like WWE, they can easily manufacture as much fake blood as they want and sort all that out. But like an indie promotion or like a smaller one, it's obviously just like, we'll just cut your head. Easy. Just get that done.
Yeah.
I guess it's one of those things where you feel a bit cheated, and when you're one of those wrestling fans who doesn't like it when the whole big, like it being too fake comes out, because blood is usually one of the more realistic parts of it, because they are legit cutting themselves to get it. You can't help but feel a little bit annoyed that they're going for like a fake blood angle when they could probably work something else out around it that didn't involve using fake blood or blood in general.
Yeah, it's wrestling in itself is all about suspension of disbelief for the most part, because we all know it's fake by now. I mean, the screw job immediately brought all that down, and now we know they're just performers who go out and tell a story. So, like in movies,
Have we lost
like in movies, you go portrait. Oh,
I think we've lost our man in the field.
All right. Well, I'll remove him for now until he comes back. Until I see him moving down at the bottom.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird line. Part of me doesn't like blading at all.
I'm with you. Like, I think, even though obviously, like we're saying, we grew up in that era where it was everywhere. Like, you'd think we'd be like very blood hungry people, but I'm kind of with you, like sparingly. I mean, obviously, but there's like some promotions that are basically built on it, like something like Combat Zone Wrestling, and even then, it's like they're not as frequent as you would think. It's mainly when they break out Tournament of Death and Cage of Death, because they do actually have some legit wrestling on there. But I'm with you. Like when it's on something mainstream like this, like AEW, WWE, I like that it's sparing now.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Part of me doesn't like that they have a pay-per-view called Blood and Guts. It almost well, right, but like an event, right? Like a Bash the Beach type thing. It's to me, it's like saying you have an elimination chamber match, whereas I'd much just prefer a general manager coming out when 6 people are arguing, no matter the time of year, and just going, you're gonna have an elimination chamber match next week or in a month's time.
Yeah.
Whereas if I see Blood and Guts, I know there's going to be some blood, possibly some guts.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's like, again, like I guess sort of the same argument of why WWE shouldn't have pay-per-views named after like Hell in the Cell and TLC. Like, just have the match and make it come out at random points of the year. Like, just be like, oh, Revolution's coming up and there's these 2 factions fighting. Have this match, and then maybe change the name of the match. Like, Blood and Guts was never a good name for a match, because I've been, again, doing more writing for the website for Matches You Need to See. I actually watched some of the original War Games matches, and basically this match is essentially War Games. It's like how it used to be. WWE is the one who's changed a lot.
Cage.
top of the cage, but at least this time you can actually move your head. Because from war, like if you haven't seen them, go back and watch the original War Games matches. The ceiling is incredibly low, and in '91, Brian Pillman legit got sparked out because a power bomb went wrong because he couldn't get high enough to take it and just got dropped on his neck. It's horrible to look at. So at least this one they fixed that issue, and I like they could have easily come up with like a much better name, I think, as well.
Well, it's solely because they don't have the copyright for War Games, right?
Yeah, but they could use the word war and put something else after it, surely. Like, is that going to infringe that much on it?
Let's come up with a better name right now. What's a better name for Blood and Guts / War Games? The double ring death cage. The deadly.
The bungalow of death.
Bungalow of Death. That's not bad. C in double, and there's a cage over it. Rumble and Money in the Bank is the only good themed pay-per-view concept. I agree. Rumble, you can't just do whenever.
Yeah.
Money in the Bank. I agree. But anything that's just like those big spectacle matches, like a Survivor Series themed match.
Like, okay, so here's the thing. Like, if you basically over the Money in the Bank, which was obviously made for WrestleMania, if you build a spectacle match and had it as its own pay-per-view to begin with, that's fine, I guess. It's just more so when you're taking matches that you already had and then going, well, we can just build a whole pay-per-view around that. That's when it's a bit like, do you need to, though? Because you're still going to have... It's like TLC comes up, like, every year? But it's like we'll still see TLC matches on other shows sometimes as well. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, it is very strange.
Like, even Hell in the Cell. Yeah. It's like, it's got its pay-per-view, but then, like, there was the year when it was at WrestleMania for Taker and Shane. It's like, well, it's lost its magic because we know it's after this, it's coming back in October for 2 matches on the same card.
I just got a message from Brogan saying, hi, this is Scott. My phone jumped from 60% battery to 0%. Lesson learned. I won't go to the forest anymore. Why did he go to a forest?
Why? Why did he think it was good?
Why did he go to the forest? We're doing a podcast. And he's like, hi, guys. I'm out in the forest.
And wasn't he bigging up the last 2 weeks that he's got better Wi-Fi at his house as well?
He just got better Wi-Fi. And he's like, I'm going to go to the forest.
Rather than test this out, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go out and use my G's.
I've got a nice mic. I've got new Wi-Fi. I'm going to go to a forest. Oh, I hate that. I love him so much.
This is why we love him, though. This is like the most Scott thing to do.
It's on brand. It is very on brand.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the matter at hand. We're talking about blood. What's your most, or one of your most iconic moments that is underscored by blood?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I'd say generally, and this is kind of an example of why blood works, because again, doing more right for the website. Like, I think one of the reasons why it used to be quite a powerful tool is the amount of stars again it's helped make. And I think if you look back at both Cactus Jack versus Triple H and Cactus Jack versus Randy Orton, they're both matches that took people that they wanted to be the next big stars, and because of Mick Foley and his essentially baptism by blood and violence, catapulted them to becoming the main event stars that they would be. So they're like kind of 2 examples off the top of my head, I think, that blood prominently used like really helps the product a lot and can help move things forward.
I wonder if there is some kind of a bit of a jump here, but I wonder if there is some kind of psychological study that you could do into the depiction of blood. And I'm sure there is, it just in media in general. But there's something about seeing it like viscerally and live in this, play fighting.
Well, it's like you go back to, I mean, obviously, because wrestling is in the combat sport spectrum. When you look at the more legitimate ones, when blood happens, because obviously that's by the hard way. That's because it's just happened and it's got really brutal. Loads of people would say that would really made paying the $50 to watch a boxing match even more worth it, because they are legit to the point of killing each other.
Yeah,
it seems, you know what I mean, and that's why wrestling itself does it, even if they can control that narrative.
Yeah. Well, that's such a. I mean, that's a weird thing, because you shouldn't be able to in a good, like in what we want, you shouldn't be able to really control when you bleed, right? You just kind of, it's a spontaneous thing and it happens. But then, some of the most iconic moments were blading. Yeah. And some most likely probably slipped under the radar and we didn't realize were.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because I'm right now, I'm like, thinking a lot of my favorite and things I consider iconic moments has involved a lot of blading and blood, like something like The Rock versus Austin at WrestleMania 17.
Right.
That was quite a bloody ending. Not obviously that high on the minute scale, but enough to make it memorable. But then I think there's equally, you don't always need blood to have like a big moment in wrestling, like something like CM Punk winning at 2011 Money in the Bank. No blood was needed there, and that's like one of the most fondly remembered moments from WWE in recent times.
You see, I'm trying to think about, like you're saying, I'm thinking to my favorite wrestlers and if blood involved, and it often is. Some of my favorite Cena moments, one of them I've got here, involve blood from way back when. It's pretty high on the Muta scale as well.
Yeah.
But then, like you say, CM Punk were my most favorites of all time, and I'm trying to think about a time where I can really. That was the headshot of it was blood, right? Like the photo takeaway was blood, and I can't really think of anything, especially in WWE. Back in
Ring of Honor and stuff, he definitely did. Yeah.
But no. Yeah, Bret Hart versus Steve Austin is a very big. Very good shout for Blood Visceral. Let's talk about these are two images that are practically the same, both trapped, I believe, at the time in a submission. We have Stone Cold, and then we've got Dustin. Do you think there's something to do with the amount of blood, or do you think there's something? Do you think there's something about blood that it some way to bleed isn't as visually, what would the word be, aesthetic? For example.
Yeah.
If you're gonna bleed, at least bleed. At least bleed.
Well,
don't bleed.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things when you look at it, it sometimes looks worse than it probably actually is. Now, obviously, we've talked about there has been moments where it's gone wrong, but I think one of the reasons why it becomes so effective and they do look like they bleed a lot is because usually it's midway through a match, the adrenaline's pumping heavily, which is gonna really help the flow. And then it's things like if you're got a lot of sweat going on and things like that, that really does help with it as well. It's like if you've ever been in the shower and you might have had a cut, like it bleeds. It looks like it bleeds worse than it actually is. But that's just the way that happens.
Tiny cut, and you're like, it looks like Psycho.
It's like Norman Bates. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's one of the things. I think that's why maybe some people don't view bleeding as always like that horrible thing. I think it's just usually when they're in the match and everything's pumping and going through, it looks worse than it actually is. Because there's plenty of stuff where you'll see them at one point they're just covered in blood, and then maybe later on in the match it looks like it's gone quite a bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen a few examples of that. Unless it's a death match where they're constantly rolling in glass, then that stuff ain't stopping. But that's kind of like the extreme example of it. Like from Nick Gage versus Ricochet and Page from GCW recently. Seen the highlights of that on YouTube, and that literally the whole ring is just covered in glass, and they just didn't stop bleeding.
I was trying to get one of David Arquette getting himself bloodied as well.
Oh, when he got his neck perforated. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's why you don't really, unless you're experienced, you don't really step in the ring with someone like Nick Gage and expect to walk away fine from it. I mean, one of the worst ones I saw was from Havoc's Farewell to Progress. He was bleeding so badly that they did have to say that because he did a speech and they did a package for him, but he was just constantly, and even he was like, bloody hell, this isn't stopping. Apparently he had to go to hospital soon afterwards because it just wouldn't stop.
I mean, I'm sure Dustin journeyed away after that. I don't know. It almost feels like a rite of passage. When I was training, and should I ever go back to it, I would quite like to have I'd quite like to bleed in a match. It's a weird thing to want, you know?
Yeah.
It's a very weird thing to want.
I don't think it's that way. I'd say if you're a pure wrestling fan, I bet you've always had one of those moments watching a match going, I would like to try and see what blading's like. It's a bit like wanting to take a steel chair shot. I don't think it's wrong that you've always fought. Maybe I'd like to try that just to see what it is like.
I hate that this has just given me a new idea for a segment or a thing that we do, but I'd quite like to do a Garrett and Greg tries, because I've done dumb things before when I worked like service jobs and I just wanted to just die. I have taken a stapler and I have just stapled my forehead before and such things. I feel like we should just take a thing in wrestling. Get away. I feel like we should take a thing in wrestling and be like, you know, how is it done? Here are some examples. Like, for example, a table spot, right? We should do we just get a big plywood table. One of us goes through it, but we talk about the history of tables and, you know, its highest profile, its lowest profile, how it goes right, how it goes wrong. And then we just do the spot. And
so essentially we could be like deathmatch science. It's like Bill Nye, but with blood.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Well, many reasons why not. But I think that's a pretty good. This is for all my juggalos and juggalettes. I think we could definitely get an interview with that guy as well. Superhuman. I actually really like that idea that I just came up because I'm a genius. But I like the deathmatch science. Is a way better name than I had.
Well, what did you have?
Grod and Greg try a thing. Wait, is shit, but deathmatch science is really good. Where we just look at, like, you know, we buy a light tube and we try it out. Because I'll take a bump. I don't care.
I'd take a light tube across the back.
Yeah,
that's one thing I want to know about the light tubes they use. Like, aren't light tubes supposed to be filled with horrible chemicals?
Yes.
And yet you've got matches where there's like 200 of them getting completely smashed. Like I'm sure that's like adding a chances of getting like cancer or something exponentially. It's not. It's like something like that kind of material. It's really bad for you if you inhale it.
Well, it's like, I don't know. I think it's xenon gas or something. I can't remember what's normally in those types of light bulbs. But probably, to be honest, the micro shards of glass are probably more hazardous than anything that might be in it, because they're usually in quite a well, you know what, maybe they're not. I was going to say well-ventilated area, but these are usually in like bar wrestling.
Unless it's something like Tournament of Death, which is on a farm pretty much.
Right, you should be fine there. That's going to go. But they're like micro shards of glass will probably fuck you up if you inhaled that. But this is all something we should talk about on Deathmatch Science.
Yes, we should.
That's dead ass, right? Of all things to come out of this, and Scott hit Scott's phone dying in a forest. Yeah, let's do it.
Which one of us is going to take the thumbtack bump?
I'll do a thumbtack bump.
You do a thumbtack, okay.
Yeah. Well, I feel like in our tag team, with me being like 1.5 foot shorter than you, I'm the one that's going to take... I'm the spike here. I know I'm taking the bumps. It would be like one episode is like, oh, okay, Garrett, you're falling into a piranha pit just like they did in this match in DDT a long time ago. And then the next episode is just like, oh, I'm taking a sugar glass to the head. And I'm Greg. Oh, that's you. Oh, Garrett, you're going into a car that's going to explode, just like Vince McMahon did. And Greg, you stapler to the back.
I'm an old man with a dodgy back, mate. You know, you've got to take one for the team. Garrett, so today we've got a plywood board over there. There's just a little bit of barbed wire around it, and then there's C4 underneath.
It does look like C4. Okay,
yeah, it'd be fine. Don't worry.
It's a dud, right?
Oh, yeah. I've been told it is.
Okay. Well, let me just.
Good luck, buddy. And it's my show now. Yes, just me now. So tune in next week just for Greg hosts the Bearhug Club podcast. I'm the sole survivor, apparently.
I was trying to like soot myself up, but it didn't work out in time. I was trying to be comedic. I didn't. I have a marker and it didn't work. What are we doing the outro?
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else you'd want to kind of mention on Blood there? I think we've done a decent coverage, to be fair.
Nah, Blood's really cool. That's all.
Blood is fine within reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can leave on that.
Pints, just about. Gallons.
Yeah. Just don't step in the ring with Nick Gage. You'll be fine.
I didn't plan on it.
I mean, is anyone planning? I mean, I'm looking forward to he's the next Dark Side of the Ring episode coming up. I think tonight. So
that might even skyrocket him into the mainstream-ish, maybe.
I mean, he's kind of there. Big on the indies, I suppose. People know his name.
I mean,
he's got a rep, but I doubt we'll ever see him on AEW. Like that'd be the only mainstream wrestling thing he could possibly show up on, and I doubt he would. I doubt maybe they would.
Blood and Guts 3. No, this is 2. This is 1?
This is 1 because they cancelled the first one. They cancelled
the first one.
Yeah. They were waiting for fans, and this is as close as they could get.
Yeah. All right, well, we've been the Bear Club.
We've been the Bear Club podcast. If you want to go follow us, all of the social medias are down at the bottom of the screen now. Obviously, Bearhug Club podcast for Facebook and YouTube, Bearhug Club Pod for Instagram, and Bearhug Club for Twitter. Also, I'll put it on screen. We've got our website, as I've been mentioning throughout the show. Please go check it out. Matches You Need to See kind of took on a new life on there, where we are going to try and get some more episodes of that done for YouTube because we do like doing them. It's just time. So since then, I've just been writing little articles for new matches and adding to the website. So if you have stuck for something to watch, go check it out. I think you'll find some cool stuff on there. And we've also got some other ideas coming for it as well. But we'd like to hear what you'd like to see from us as well. So just feel free to drop us some messages, either through the website or social media.
Big love.
Good night. Farewell.
Which one of us is hitting end broadcast?